This is the voice of freedom. We are not one voice. We are many. We are your voice. But we can only be effective if you use your voice. Your voice. This is the voice of freedom. We will not hide from the truth. We will ask the hard questions until we are sure we have the truth. Welcome to the voice of freedom, where your voice will never be silenced. Good evening, folks, and welcome along. It's Nothing But the Truth Tuesday, and I know, just like me, a lot of you look forward to this day immensely. It's a day where we get to speak with one of the leaders of this country. Even if he's not sitting in Parliament, he certainly has a lot of the people behind him, and one day we may well see him there. I'd like to welcome him back to the show once again and thank him for his time and his service. Good evening, Sir Riccardo Bosi. How's your week been?
Good evening. Say again.
How's your week been?
Excellent, outstanding, working very hard, flat out. It's what we call in the military an operational pause. The offensive ops just pause briefly while we regroup, batten down the hatches, make sure everything is tight because we know there's a major offensive coming. So it's been a very useful couple of weeks, and this week particularly, and probably next week as well, because we know that big things are happening in the next little while. So we want to make sure everything's as tight as it can be, so we're ready to go.
It has been an interesting week for me via email and personal contact from people. I've had a lot of contact from people who've been in Darwin for the V8 supercar race and were giving me lots of reports of the military on the streets up there. There are apparently 2 operations in progress up there at the moment. One called Operation Pitch Black. Got to think that with 2 operations going on at the moment, there are a lot of military forces, but they weren't seeing that many on the ground. They were hearing a lot about it, and there's been a lot of interesting movement underground by way of earthquake in the Northern Territory recently, just south of Tennant Creek, 10 kilometres deep, funnily enough. Another one, 10 kilometres deep, just south of the Northern Territory, South Australia border. Everything, all at 10 kilometres deep. What have you been hearing in the last week, Riccardo? You say you've been having an operational pause. It doesn't seem there has been one in other areas.
Well, it's first of all some technical descriptions. An operation or an exercise. An exercise is a training activity. An operation is live ammunition. And so pitch black is a regular. It's a regular in a number of regular activities they have up north, and it's exercise pitch black. Like we have the kangaroo exercises. There's a whole range of exercises that on a rotational basis occur. So it's either an exercise or an operation, and pitch black is an exercise training activity. Having said that, if you're looking for a cover story for something that was an operation, Carl, you'd sort of tie it up with something on top, wouldn't you? Because that would make sense. It would explain the troops in the area. It would explain bumps in the night, loud explosions. Mm-hmm. So your guess is as good as mine. 10 kilometers deep. That's interesting. That seems to equate to dumb things. But
there seems to be a bit going on, including, as it turns out tonight, our good friend has done a show tonight. Dave Guru Graham has done a show tonight on mortality and particularly morticians. He was speaking to a mortician out of Sydney. And I know some of the people in our chat tonight have already been through that show and are quite shocked at the results. You've sort of been onto this today as well, haven't you? So what can you tell us about, what's going on in the mortician business?
Well, let's go back. There's a video I'd like to run from my good friend Reese in the United States, Reese Report.
Sure.
But before I do, I'll just mention something that I was told back in 2 Decembers ago when I did the Queensland tour with the whole family. 6,355 kilometers, 29 days, 24 meetings and presentations. And when I hit Townsville, it was like I almost hit the center of the rat's nest. And I served a couple of years in Townsville back in the 80s. And I liked it as a town, but my God, the place is, it's just corruption personified. And I was told up there, and this is going back a couple of years, that a lot of the private funeral homes were being bought out by the large corporate ones. And I thought, what's that got to do with, the impending killing of millions of people. And then the penny dropped, and I'm a simple soldier. But think about it. They're going to kill you, and then they're going to get you to pay for your own funeral. So they're wrapping up the both ends of the spectrum. So as soon as you cark it, they want their hand in your pocket when you die as well. But do you mind if I just quickly flick across and play this video, because it gives it's an excellent summary. And as we've said many times before, there's no shortage of information about what's going on. The problem is getting it out to the wider public, because the media is still heavily controlled. But let me just play this, and then we'll have a chat about death, mortality rates, and what's causing it. So just give me a thumbs up that it's playing clearly.
All good.
The evidence of vaccine death and injuries is overwhelming to anyone capable of seeing past the mainstream media's hypnotic lies. The numbers tell us that the vaccines have already caused a 20% increase in deaths.
Now we have a run rate of about 20% excess mortality. That's confirmed by the CDC numbers, the funeral home numbers, and the insurance company numbers. And then somebody did an independent study I saw recently suggesting 20% is the number. So we're running at 20% excess deaths.
And a 10% increase in disabilities.
This is a stunning number. You're telling me that things been flat for 5 years at 29 million, and all of a sudden out of the data, they got 3 million people are disabled out of nowhere?
Correct.
And now we are beginning to understand that this is just the beginning. Things are going to get much worse. Many of us have already seen the mysterious objects found in the vials of COVID vaccines by 2 separate independent groups using electron microscopy. We are also familiar with the rising number of strokes, heart attacks, and other side effects experienced worldwide after the biggest experimental vaccination in history. And now we are getting a first glimpse of what is causing all this. Something in the COVID vaccines seems to be growing within the recipient's vascular system. Anomalous objects are being discovered in the dead bodies of the vaccinated by embalmers and coroners. Horrific things being grown inside the veins and arteries. These are not blood clots, and they appear to be some sort of organic material with small crystals and extremely thin wires made up of what looks like reptilian scales. This internal blockage growing within the vaccinated would certainly explain all of the deadly side effects we are seeing today. What the mainstream media is currently spinning as sudden adult death syndrome. We do not know what these things are, but they are being found by embalmers and coroners everywhere, except pretty much all of them are too afraid to speak out, or they don't care. Only one has shown the courage to speak out so far, and this is the real tragedy. For those who remain silent, things will not get better. The FDA is poised to authorize these deadly vaccines to children as young as 6 months old, and humanity does nothing.
Today, we want to provide an update on a topic that I know many parents and grandparents are focused on: the potential for the first COVID-19 vaccines for kids under 5. We have waited a long time for this moment.
Well, guys, here's some good news. The Biden administration has finally announced a vaccine rollout plan for children under 5, and they've ordered 10 million doses. That's great. Right now, kids are like, oh my gosh, we can finally meet up for drinks. Yep, as we speak, everyone in the lollipop industry is like, we're buying a yacht. Here we go. You get a lollipop, you get one. It's very exciting to hear a 4-year-old scream, Facebook told me Bill Gates controls the vaccines. You're okay.
Why should we deserve anything other than pain and suffering if we do nothing to protect our own children? Once those afraid of speaking out begin seeing their coroner tables filled with dead children, it will be too late. But it's not too late now. If you are an embalmer, a coroner, or a funeral director, and you are seeing these things, there is still time to save the lives of our innocent children. You can start now by contacting Dr. Jane Ruby at protonmail.com. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
Wow.
Okay. So there you have it. That's Greg Reese's take on it. Greg's a very balanced, measured guy. He does his research, and the
I'm not
context
sure
of that
I'm
video.
not sure YouTube fact checkers are going to agree with his research.
Yeah, well,
So,
the fact checkers have been fact checked and been found to be liars. But here's the thing: the Australian government, as recently as a couple of days ago or yesterday, said the children in Australia under 5 will soon be getting their vaccinations. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said to Carl before the show, no more swear words out of me. We've been doing our best. We've been measured. We've been calm. I've done my gourd at the sheer stupidity of some people or the blindness. There we go. Your 6 and 5-year-olds are about to be killed because people don't want to know. Now, here's the thing, and Carl and I know this. There's no shortage of information out there. There are acres and acres of information, but the media won't let it out. More stories are coming. I don't doubt that. But how quickly, how slowly do we have to let this story out? But I want you to be, if you want to take action, because people say to me all the time, what can I do? What can I do? Well, apart from, build the A1 army, which is the standard job we have to do, how about everybody contact directly with snail mail, not emails, snail mail. Ita Buttrose, the head of the ABC. She is the chair of the ABC. And ask her in a polite way, and don't produce a copy letter that everyone just signs the same letter because they get binned. Communicate in your own words and ask her, why is she not questioning the narrative? Why is she not ensuring that the ABC is reporting the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Ask her personally what she's doing about it, because she is one of the red hats. Now, for those of you who know the analogy we use, the black hats are the evil bastards running this show. The red hats are the mindless, useful idiots that will do what they're told without a second's thought. And there's a couple of them. Peter Credlin's another one, former Chief of Staff to Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott and wife of the Federal Director of the Liberal Party. And then you've also got, Lee Sales at the ABC 7 to 30 report. 3 idiot women. They're too stupid to know what they're doing. Either that or they're corrupt or they like killing people or they're on the payroll. But write to all 3 of them. Write to Ita Buttrose, Peter Credlin, and Lee Sales, and ask them, why are you not covering this? And ask them politely.
well,
And send your letters in by
Lee
the hundreds of thousands, ladies and gentlemen.
Lee Sales at the moment, of course, has just quit her job at the ABC and has sort of gone on leave for 6 months. She's looking for maybe a project she can take up. This would be an ideal one to give her. So social media would be the way to contact her at the moment. But
Well,
certainly,
Lee Sales isn't getting away with it. It's not like she can run away and pretend she didn't have anything to do with it. We'll get you, Lee, because your replacement is that other blonde bimbo, isn't it? What's her name?
I don't even bother with the ABC anymore, so I
No,
couldn't tell you.
but they're all going to cop it in the neck if they deserve it. But ladies and gentlemen, these 3 women are either idiots, they're imbeciles, they are mentally deficient, or they're corrupt. There's only one of 2 options here. And then you've got the other 3. You've got Andrew Bolt, Alan Jones, and Paul Murray. And you know what? I think the LGBT group might have something to it, because they're definitely not women, and by Christ, they're not men. So there might be that third gender that we're questioning, because the 3 of them don't have balls, they don't have dick, and they don't have a spine. And so Alan Jones, Paul Murray, and Andrew, the fish's wet bits Bolt, why are you not reporting this stuff? Why are you not examining it? And if you are being paid, I hope it's a lot, and you better spend it fast, guys, because you're not going to have long to hang around.
We've seen a bit of a swing at the moment in the past couple of days with swimming, particularly. FINA coming out and saying that women were now going to be safe to race against women. Transgenders would be put into an open section going forward. Is this a leap forward or a leap to the left, so to speak? Just one step to the left.
It's a leap to insanity. It's a leap to insanity. In fact, a friend of mine, his daughter's a swimmer, and she's doing very well. And in her class, she was never the fastest in her group. And yet she's now the fastest because the rest all had their jab. And she's continuing, as you do in that sort of sphere, you do your personal best. And she's doing personal best and now beating everybody. The rest have stopped doing personal bests. Why? Because the jab has interfered with their physical capacity. But the whole transgender thing, it's part of the globalist agenda. It's right out there. It's one of their big 3 objectives, just to do away with the difference between men and women.
Have you seen any of the conspiracies or theories that have been put out online about Michelle/Michael Obama would be one leading transvestite apparently in front of us. There is talks that Jacinda Ardern may be a little bit better equipped under her dress than most people are expecting. There are quite a number of Hollywood types that have supposedly been engineered, if you like, to look like females, but are in fact males. Is this all part of the great curtain that has been drawn in front of us? And we're not
Absolutely. Michael Obama, Barry Soweto's boyfriend. There's a picture of the two of them when before he became Michael. If you've seen Michael Obama stand next to any normal woman, he looks like an American basketballer. Just the sheer size of the guy is huge. He's enormous. And so they're very careful about the photographs of Michael with Barry, making sure that there are photographs. The others I'm not sure about, but there's plenty of evidence to say that Michael is Michael. Didn't an American comedian get whacked shortly after she said publicly that everybody knows that Michael's a bloke? What was her name? Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers died on the operating table. Yes. Just undergoing another surgery. I mean, she'd only been under 300 at the time, but by that time.
But the press at the time was saying when Michael became the first lady, they're saying how attractive he was, and he was the most attractive first lady in American history. And you could tell they were pushing it so hard, trying to persuade people of what was obviously a lie. And then Trump was elected, and his bride is now the first lady, and not a word, not a word about how particularly attractive she was. Absolutely not. Michael's, Michael's just a stunner.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There were talks that that George Bush Sr.'s wife may have also been, backing a little bit more under the skirt. So this does tend to go back a long way, and I'm sure that there are these questions raised in the bureaucracy as well. The public just don't know about it because it's so clearly hidden. But well, we are looking forward to much exposure in the coming weeks and months, and I'm sure there's going to be more than one or two surprises coming our way. So I'm pretty excited to see what's coming with that. And to that, we've had a few people who've already put up questions tonight. Certainly looking for intel. What are you hearing, Riccardo? Is anything moving on at the moment? Are we any closer to resolving all of this? So let's get that handful out of the way first up. Have we moved any further forward from last week?
Slowly, yes. The best way I can answer is what is Riccardo Bosi and A1 doing? We are battening down the hatches. We are making sure that everything is absolutely tight and ready to go, because we know in the next little while it's going to get very busy, and we won't have time to muck around with IT systems that aren't functioning and databases that are not performing up to scratch and all that hard mechanical stuff. We're tightening it all up. This is preparation before you cross the line of departure and the assault commences. And so that's why it seems like people are saying, "Oh, where's Riccardo? What's A1 doing?" We're working very hard. Just remember, we had over 3 months in Canberra. Then we had an election. We've got the post-election work to do. And now we're preparing, and now we're preparing for the next phase. The next phase, as many have heard, August seems to be a month that's being bandied around. It may or may not happen in August because it's always difficult picking the time. The event will occur. The timing is difficult because there are so many individuals involved in a process that free will plays its part, and it adds an element of chaos to all of it. So things are still moving ahead. You mentioned a few exercises up north. There are things that are happening that are unseen. It frustrates me as much as it frustrates everybody else. I want this done yesterday. I'm trying to sit here and be the measured statesman, and all I want to do is become the soldier again very quickly. But unfortunately, in doing that, you lose too many of the people you want to capture. So you've got to make sure the outer cordon is around the inner cordon, and then to send the lads in to finish the job. But yeah, things are moving forward, but it's a quiet period before the storm. And so what we're doing organizationally with A1, battening down the hatches, making sure the systems are correct, making sure the right people are in the right job at the right time, and we're certainly not racing ahead. We're not accepting. We're still putting the same barriers to joining up, working with children's check and all that sort of stuff, because this is a tight ship that we have to run. But similarly, at a private level, you should all be doing the same, ladies and gentlemen. Get yourself squared away in terms of food, water, fuel, gas bottles, barbecues. Literally, that's what you should be focusing on the next couple of weeks. Get your house in order. Now, if nothing happens, happy days. But if it does, it does.
It does. Exactly right. If nothing happens, it's all good. You're stocked up for a good holiday to go and go camping for a week or two. Geo Engineering's played a big role this week too. I've been sent photos from all over the country from people, from farmers sitting on tractors in Western Australia to people sitting up north on the side of a river, avoiding crocodiles, one assumes, trying to catch fish. And it's been interesting, particularly for some farmers that have been tracking these things. They've been counting how many times, and it's not the same aircraft, but how many different aircraft it seems are spraying, and how a beautiful day with horizon to horizon, deep blue skies, all of a sudden gets a milky covering to it and clouds over. So Diane is interested in, what do you know about the Geo Engineering War that's going on at the moment?
It's been going on, just for those who are new to this, or they've finally realised there is a rabbit hole worth diving into. Aerial spraying has been legal, say, in Victoria since, I think, the 60s or 70s. So this is not new. Weather control and understanding the weather has been a major part of military planning for centuries, before they could control it, knowing what was coming down the track. D-Day, June 6, 1944. They had to pick the best tide, they had to pick the best time, and they had to pick the best weather. And they had weather stations up in the Arctic Circle to monitor what was coming. So now, when they had the capacity to start controlling the weather, it changed everything. They didn't have to wait for good weather, they created it. Now, when we were in Canberra for that 3 months, we saw them coming over again and again and again, crisscross patterns of chemtrails. And they're not condensation trails. Condensation trails evaporate very quickly. There isn't one. And even those flights where you see what looks like a contrail, a condensation trail, then it evaporates after the aircraft, some distance behind the aircraft, that's a chemtrail as well. Because genuine condensation trails do not exist. You don't see them. So anytime you see the white mist out the back, it's a bad thing. Now, add to that the fact that in Queensland, I think they are now preparing to use the aerial spraying to mass inoculate people with vaccines. I'm not sure if you heard about that one. And the fact that the possibility that there is a weather war with the good guys applying their own flights to interfere with the intentions of the black hats, and that's certainly my understanding of it. But it is real. Geo engineering is real. They are poisoning you. They are poisoning the land. They are poisoning the water. They want us dead. There's no simpler way to say it. They want us dead, and they'll do anything they can to do it. Now, they understand that they are losing, because a lot of the black hats have been removed, and the idiot black hats below them don't know that the black hats above them have been removed, and they're doing their best. They're struggling. They're panicking because they don't have instructions, because they're not very bright. And by idiots, I mean politicians and health officers and police commissioners and people like that. They have immense authority and power over the individual people, but that's really quite dull, quite stupid people. They're not bright. And so, unfortunately, they are now desperately trying to save themselves, and they don't know what to do. But the chemtrail issue is extremely real. And if people want to call you names, then just ignore them. Make sure that they're the ones that probably got the vaccine and wear the mask. Not sure if you're there. Don't know if you're still there or not, Carl. But I'll tell you what, since I'm on my own, what I might do is I'll just jump to another subject to fill in the dead space. I'm going to share, just bear with me, please, folks, if you're listening. Now, you'll remember that last week we were speaking about Western Australia and the organisation that is charged with the responsibility of working with children's checks, and how the exemptions in the working with children's checks system allows a pedophile to fly in from anywhere in Australia and for a period of 2 weeks rape as many children as he or she wants, Because remember, pedophilia is an equal opportunity crime here, for 2 weeks, and then they can fly back out again. And this is allegedly a good thing for the state of Western Australia. Well, shortly after that, we found a range of stories come out very, very quickly, and you should be able to see on your screen now. The West Australian A-listed child abuse charges. Health boss and friend of the most powerful people in Western Australia allegedly found with sickening videos of young girls. So it looks like slowly, the truth will be coming out. Then we've got another story, and I hope you can see this one. Kyle Trevor Saunders, Bunbury teenager charged with child abuse material offences. A Southwest teenager has faced court after being charged by WA and federal police for allegedly storing and sharing child abuse material online. It's coming out, folks. This is not a conspiracy. This is real. Another one, Southwest man charged with historic child sexual abuse offences. 84-year-old man from the Southwest will appear in Katanning Magistrates Court today facing historic child abuse offence charges. And the whacker, the famous whacker, the West Australian Cricket Association harboured a pedophile junior coaching coordinator, Roy Wenlock, for 29 years. So there you go, folks. It's WA and their grooming government. So you're back there, are you? No, not there still. All right. I'm going to stay a bit longer, and hopefully Carl will get back on. No, I can't tell if you're still there or not. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're on, put up your questions, and we'll see if we can. I can answer them for you. I'll stay on. While we're at it, why not? Let's do a quick scroll. Okay, let's go again. Let's share the screen. Okay, once again, those who are new to this game, patents. The patent for AIDS is there on the record. The patent for H1N1 virus, the Ebola virus, swine flu, BSE, Zika, SARS, and the coronavirus. They all have patent numbers, folks. They are created and patented. This is the world in which we live.
Well, I don't know whether or not you've got me back, Rick. I'm trying.
Yep, I've got you. I don't know whether you were there or not, but I was talking, hoping to keep the people entertained. I'm not sure whether they were entertained, bored, or couldn't hear me.
Well, I think, yes, it looks like in the comments, they've certainly been able to see. That's the beauty of using this system that we use. If I drop out, you will still keep going, or vice versa. And the thing sort of links back in again when it regains footage. I'm in a bad coverage area, or I'm being really hammered, one of the two. So, yeah, I've got 2 internet connections I can connect to, and neither one seems to be working. I did manage to pick up, though, that you were talking about some of the interesting court rulings that have come out recently. A Labor staffer, I don't know if you've covered that one, was given home detention after he was convicted of pedophile crimes. The judge said he didn't look like he was really suited to going to prison, so gave him a home detention order instead of having to go to prison. Our justice system is not working, certainly not working with any form of real justice. A lot of people have been asking questions. I'm just trying to scroll down because I've got a heap of questions that I've saved here. People are asking what the A1 policies are on fixing our justice system, if you like, moving forward.
Yeah, it's once again, the analogy is a good one. It's like denazifying Germany after the war. You had to get rid of the Nazis, but the only people that knew how to run the trains, the buses, the courts, the police force, they were all Nazis. And so there is a difficulty. But the overarching approach, let's just put it this way. The overarching approach is that we get the ones that we've got hard evidence of, and we make them the truth and reconciliation offer, which is tell us all you know, or you won't see daylight. Now, most of these people who rape kids and who cover up those that rape kids are basically cowards. And so most will talk, as has been done in the US, and that'll start to reveal everybody else. And one by one, we start to take them out. Now, there's a fast way of doing that, because you just take out the top rows of management, and then the ones beneath will see the change. And they might be loathsome cowards, but they're not idiots, and they'll quickly turn around. But it's going to be a very interesting period in Australian history, because there is no law. There is no law, and we understand that. So to progress with the law as it is written now would be as egregiously wrong as the fact that it's being done to us. So let's say there's an A1 government and people expect to have those laws applied. Well, we can't do that in good conscience, because those laws were unconstitutional. So we're going to have this interregnum, which is a sexy word for this period between the kings, where instead of saying, you know what, we'll just do business as usual, everything comes to a grinding halt. It just stopped, because oh gosh, the lawyers don't get paid. What a tragedy that would be.
Oh yeah, awful.
There will be a period where we pause, because we have to decide as a people. Now, people have known what's going to happen in that pause. We get everybody back to work. We put in the policies that are required to help the country recover as quickly as possible. Nothing too radical. We set up the electoral system, then the individuals and parties and whoever can stand up and say, vote for me, here are our policies. But there's this interregnum period. Nothing radical happens, nothing changes, but nothing continues, if that makes sense. It's a caretaker mode. Because the truth of this is, just about every criminal that's been thrown away could lawfully swing around and go, well, that was unlawful, you should release me. This is the rotten end of the story. It's quite true. Rapists and murderers will say, well, there was no authority. I wasn't part of the corporation. I never consented to this. I should be freed. And so there's a very delicate period that we have to go through.
Well, yes, and in that circumstance, they wouldn't be freed. One would suggest they would be given a retrial, wouldn't they, under trial by jury?
Yeah, no, it's exactly the point. So there's this period of pause until alternate means of, say, in the legal issue, because it covers every aspect of life in Australia. Just think about it. Everything, everybody and everything needs to be redone. But you're exactly right. So during this period, everything pauses and stops. Nothing happens until the system can be fixed. A retrial is exactly what's got to be done, and it's got to be done unconstitutionally. And that's why when people talk about what is the basis of the law, our point, and it's as arbitrary as anybody else, we're going back to the 1901 Constitution, and from there we can decide how this should progress. Now, if people have a better idea, I'm all ears, because they are all arbitrary selections of points. But that's one at least where we think we can get reasonable agreement. And if we can't, once again, we're not wedded to that. What we are wedded to is making sure that people have the ability to choose for themselves by whom and how they are governed. And so this period, this interregnum, this period of this caretaker mode, everything pauses until we can fix a system. So we have a system in place that the people trust, and that is key.
Interesting question here, and thank you for the sticker. What foreign imports would you ban if A1 was in control?
Okay. The easiest way to answer this is there's a whole range of issues within Australia that deal with national security. But in a general sense, and they're the ones that we need to make sure we have an industry to produce that here. And that should be, for example, chips, computer chips. Computer chips today are as important as being the first ones to have gunpowder about 500 years ago. That's how critical they are. Right. So something like that. So I want to make sure that whatever computer chips that the government is using are designed and manufactured here, so we know exactly what's going on. Private enterprise, if you want to import other chips, that's your business. We are big fans of trade. We are big fans of private enterprise. We are big fans of do what you like with your life, as long as it does not threaten national security. So in terms of imports, there is no category of import other than those that interfere with the safety and well-being of the Australian nation state.
Yep, couldn't agree more. People are wondering about our national resources, particularly at the moment, and I know for a fact that our gas industry, our best gas gets siphoned off overseas, particularly for the European winter. And if you happen to have an LPG set up on your car, you can be guaranteed that during our summer, the European winter, your gas, if you're using LPG, will be at a much lower quality. Your car won't be running well, and it actually chews out the special seals in the motor and all that. I know that from experience because I worked for a fleet of limousines that ran on LPG, and we figured out soon enough where the catch was with it all. But we are giving away we're not giving away, we're selling at a great price, but we don't seem to be keeping any reserves for ourselves, Riccardo. How do we change that?
Well, one of our goals is to be energy independent. Absolutely energy independent, and it's Australia first. See, those deals are being cut by corporations who have bought and paid for politicians to allow those deals to be done.
Yeah.
Those days are done.
Does that include rebuilding refineries or indeed building new refineries?
Absolutely, we need it, and the storage facilities. We need to be absolutely independent, energy independent. And so, look, when the tax plan kicks in and you get a zero tax, except for the 2% expenditure tax, genuine companies that create wealth, not just put together schemes to milk the government, which is what most of these guys do, they'll have the means to do it. Now, where there is a return on investment that is a long period of time, for example, in the current tax regime, building a coal-fired power plant, the return on the ROI on that's about 30 years. That's a long time to ask private enterprise to wait for a payback. But let's just say with the tax regime that we're putting into place, it is still too long in terms of return on investment. And private business can do what they like with their money. If they don't want to invest because the ROI is too long and too low, that's good on them, no problem. But the government will then build and own and operate that which private enterprise will not. And that's the role for government. Government should not be competing with private enterprise, but by the same token, it should be stepping in where private enterprise won't. And this PPP, this private-public partnership nonsense, which in theory sounds great, but in reality, it becomes a long-term scam by which corporations, banks particularly, have their hand in your pocket forever. So
it's just
not a big fan of PPPs. How about we build it, we own it, and if they want to buy it from us down the track, that's fantastic. But once again, national security is key. The fact that we've got this this centralized energy system within the country, the size of Australia is just insane, but it is designed to hold us hostage. So there you go.
You mentioned national security a couple of times in that in that reply. Facial recognition software is being rolled out across the country in more and more places, more unexpected places than you might assume. Go and have a look at your Coles or Woolies next time you're doing your own self-checkout and check out the new little cameras they have to look at you. Where do you stand on all of that, Rick? Why are they doing that to us now?
Control us. It's the Chinese model. I've got a video of what China can do with the facial recognition system, and how quickly they can identify you and arrest you. On the video, the British journalist puts the Chinese allow him to do it, and they're selling it as this wonderful security method. But they put his details into the machine. The photograph is there. Within 5 to 7 minutes, he's spotted and arrested. Now, that's great.
Wow.
The trouble is, guess what? Most people aren't criminals. The government has no freaking business knowing where you are and what you're doing. It is your business.
Would most people say, well, it's not a bad thing to use it to go and capture the criminals? It's okay if the government use it to go and capture the criminals, surely.
Oh, well, the police can stop raping children, actually go find a crim, or maybe find a spy, or maybe find a corrupt politician, or a kiddie fiddling judge, instead of beating up innocent sovereign beings who are their masters. So maybe the coppers could get off their asses and actually start doing their job. You don't need a police state to solve crime. These are just, give me a break. All those, what are they called? Those mobile phone cameras, because the scourge of mobile phone deaths around the country. There's nothing compared to the kids that were being raped and stolen. But they're there just as part of the facial recognition 5G network. Those are all going to come down. The moment we get into power, the 5G towers are down. The facial recognition cameras are down. Now, if you run a private business and you're in security, that's great. But if you're a mega corp like Coles or Woolies, and you want to photograph people, absolutely, you have to ask permission for them every time you do it.
Interesting question here about outlawing the police from attacking civilians and doctors from pushing medical procedures without informed consent. I'm going to drop in and out here again by the look of it. What can be done about particularly doctors pushing medical procedures without informed consent or giving informed consent? And the police seem to be backing off a little bit in their violence towards the people, which is a good thing. But I'm sure it's just there in the background and can be brought to a head at any time they require it. Obviously.
Oh, all you need is a minister for police who knows what his or her job is. And if the commissioner allowed that to happen, the commissioner gets charged, and everybody down the chain of command gets charged. See, the reason all of this happens, whether it's the police or the doctors, is there is no consequence for bad behaviour. No consequence. The moment there's a consequence, guess what? People stop doing it. And here's one for the medicos. What's one of the major killers in Australia? Medical malpractice in hospitals. I'm not even talking about COVID.
Yeah.
That's never out there, is it? So once medical malpractice is mandatorily reported in the papers on the real ABC, which we will let free, and say this week at Westmead Hospital, 15 children died because this particular doctor got his sums wrong.
Yep.
Once it is,
Yep.
It's you know what it's like. Once the cover up starts, the truth stops. There will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And my God, you watch behaviour in Australia change the moment. Everybody knows that if they screw up, it's going to be on the real ABC's news.
So it seems it's already beginning in New Zealand. There are mass protests out in front of hospitals with particularly known deaths. 8 deaths in a week, infant mortalities in a week, unexplained infant mortalities. The people in New Zealand are rising up. It seems a little bit faster than we are. Are you getting any intel out of your contacts in New Zealand about?
That's exactly right. For some reason, they were behind us. And now it seems like we have slowed down, and I am honestly, I'm scratching my head. I'm trying to understand why this is slowing down in Australia. It beggars belief. It beggars belief.
Particularly as every day there is more, they seem to be pounding more and more and more upon us. Queensland, for instance, from July 1 will have the most expensive speeding fines or any other road kind of fine in the country. For many years, your state held that honour, if that's what you call it. But now having a mobile phone or touching a mobile phone, I think was a $330 fine, now goes up to over $1,000. The basic speeding fine goes up to nearly or just over $1,000. So all these fines are going to do, because inevitably the people who wind up doing the speeding are those who are least able to afford to pay $1,000 fine. This is another form of debt trap, another form of keeping you enslaved and controlled, is it not?
It is, but it's almost like so much is being piled upon us. They're hoping to get a response, and yet the Australian people just sit there and say nothing. And this is a lesson for us that we must remember. We really must. I've said it before. It's human nature just to sit there and take it, but it's extraordinary. The level of nonsense that the Australian people will tolerate quietly. Just leave me alone. Please don't disturb me. Let me stay in my corner. Let me watch the footy. Let me watch my kitchen rules. I will do whatever you want. I'll give you my child. Yes, you may kill my child. Just please leave me alone. It doesn't speak well of the Australian character. But having said that, to be fair, I am getting more and more feedback from the A1 types. And I was at an event on the weekend. I was invited to an event called Supernova, which is like Comic-Con. All the movie characters turned up in costume. It was fantastic. The girls got their photograph with Batman and Darth Vader and things like that. And we were guests of a wonderful man called Scott Brewer, who created the Garrison 7 characters and story. And there was a surprising number of people. I didn't think that would be my milieu, but a number of people from mums and dads wandering around their kids, through to a gentleman in one of the hot dog vans out the front and said, "Aren't you that politician?" I said, "Nope, I'm a soldier." He said, "Yep, I thought it was you." And the message that I got quite loud and clear was that keep doing what you're doing. There's a lot of us out there that support you and A1. And so they're sitting quietly. They're looking for that moment to come on board. And ladies and gentlemen, I've got to tell you, if you don't want to join A1, that is absolutely fine. I mean that. because this is not for everybody. This is the special ops of political parties. We don't align with anybody that's not clean. We don't, and checked out. They might be clean, but if they won't let us check them out, then we're not interested. That's why we don't align with anybody at all. But we let people in once they've been checked out. But you better get on board fast, because the membership is opening. Get in, get on board, become part of the solution, because we're building this arc, and this arc has to be solid and has to be big and carry as many people that want to come with us from where we are to where we want to be.
So, Rick,
I'm
you
shocked.
You mentioned about joining there and people supporting and becoming members of the party and the process that you go through.
Yeah.
Now I've been through the process. I had to go through the process to even get my first interview with you, and that process took, admittedly, Christmas was in between, but it took the better part of 3 months. It taught me patience. Can I just say that? Because in my radio career, I've been very lucky. I've had access to some of the biggest names in the rock music world. I've partied backstage with quite a lot of them. I've sat on the front wheel of Michael Schumacher's Formula One car, interviewing Michael Schumacher, and I didn't have to wait 3 months to do it or go through some test. In fact, I got royal accreditation for a royal visit faster than I got accreditation to get a Riccardo Bosi interview. Can you explain to people who are going to go through this process, and some have already stated to me privately that, oh, gee, it's a long process. You don't hear anything. It's all a bit quiet. Can you just explain why it's necessary this process has to be that way?
Absolutely. First of all, there are some technical issues, databases, insufficient volunteers going through the list. And we're doing our best to fix that as best we can. But the moment we let a crook in, we're in trouble, particularly with the names and the registrations, because the way organizations get infiltrated, they get a key position, a low level but key position, and then they can let their crooked mates in. Now, having said that, and that's just the mechanics that we're trying to get around. The second part is we have this military grade system that has been designed from the ground up to make sure that nobody can penetrate us because they want to get in. And the last one is, yes, we don't talk to anybody unless they've been cleared. I mean it. And we get a lot of calls from a lot of very good people. So I'd like to work with Rick. I'm here. I'm this, that, and the other. I say, great. First question: have you signed up? Have you got your working with? Oh no, we haven't. Thanks. Don't bother calling. Please don't. Honestly, you could have the winning numbers to lotto. We're not interested. We only want people that are cleared. Yeah. And then people get all sort of, bit of ego comes in, but I'm me. And I go, really? So what? Next question. This has to be a very slow growth process. For example, our Gab feed, it's a closed group, which is an interesting position to take for a political organization, you'd think. And we got 5,400, but we go through each one. And I think it's a ratio of about 4 out of 10 are bots or trolls. Because what we do is we check every applicant one by one, and we see what they've actually posted in the past, how long they've been on, have they posted anything of substance, and if there's nothing there, we just ignore them because they're just bots or they're trolls or they're spies trying to get in. And it's not perfect, but it's a very slow process. Now, the good people at Gab have helped us clear more faster because I think they've noticed us, because previously I think you could only clear 20 in an hour, and when you got 3,000 waiting to get onto the Gab list, it takes time to go through that. But they've actually increased the number that we can now allow on. But this is incredibly important to get it right, to get it slow. So if it's slow, I do apologize, folks. But look, you can still get out there. You can get you can go to if you want to help, and the whole basis of this organization is to serve the people, go to our Rumble channel, go to our BitChute channel, and share everything that we are doing and find out what's going on and get ideas on what you want to do. Now, we will accelerate this process as best we can. We're migrating a lot of previously secured, working with children's checks and everything else. But understand this is a slow growth organization for security purposes. This is the special ops. Not everybody's going to like it. Not everybody's going to make it. That's just life. We got a blacklist like everybody else. Just like the Masons, we got a blacklist. And those people will never be allowed to join A1. Ever. Ever.
If you had a benefactor that came out of the ether, as Russell Marsh may intend to do, what would you do if you had a few $1 million donated to the party? Because clearly, it's not a party yet, but it will be. But to the organisation, what would you do with it? How would it benefit us all moving forward if you were put in custodianship of a couple of $1 million?
Oh, no, it's a great question. And now, as you know, we've got 5 other lines of operation, which I don't talk a lot about because, as I've said before, politics is the most visible and least critical. Because think about our adversaries. They didn't take over the world by taking over politics initially. They took over the medical profession. They took over the legal profession. They took over the military. They took over the constabulary. They took over, you get my drift.
Yep.
And so the best way to reverse, and I'm not going to, it's our counter move does not exactly mimic theirs, but if you're smart, you can figure out the sort of approach we're taking. Now, let's say somebody said, I've got $1 million. What are you going to do with $1 million? I've got a project right now waiting for that. But basically, it's telling stories because people will only listen to you and me for so long before they get bored, witless, and switch off.
Yep, I agree.
Stories are how our adversaries have demoralized the West. They in the old days they had morality tales, and a series of events would occur, and there was a lesson. And it started with Aesop, back in Aesop's fables, and the moral of the story is whatever. And so a moral people always appreciates these morality tales because we need to teach ourselves and our kids to make sure we have the same sets of values and we appreciate the same virtues. And this is the basis of a moral people. And so to demoralize a people, you tell stories where there is no morality, the bad guy wins, the good people lose, and everyone laughs their way to after the bank robbery or whatever's occurred. And so it's a subset of a subset of a subset. So this isn't the big deal, but this is one. If someone said, look, here's a few $1 million, what are you going to do? I've got a book right here, ready to go. And ideally, this is a 13-part miniseries because the story is so unique. It's a true story. And the gentleman involved is a vet, is an American, is a vet. He lives in Southeast Queensland. I'll put you in touch with him. Carl is a lovely guy. He helped inform our live animal export policy. But he spent time as a young man in Africa, providing as part of the US aid program to developing nations as a vet. And it's a hell of a story, but more importantly, it's an important story that must be told. So ideally, it'd be a 13-part miniseries, and it would do it a disservice to do it as a 90-minute commercial movie.
Wonderful. I'd be very interested in learning more about that.
Yeah, that's an example of what we would do if the money came in, because people, when you tell them a story, they sit back, they engage. The prefrontal cortex is disengaged because they get to willingly suspend their disbelief, and so they get to fall in love with the characters and learn the lesson along with the character as the character travels the arc of the story, if that makes sense. Now, this is what the bad guys have been doing to us for generations and generations and generations. And let me explain how it's changed, because initially, the movie industry, I think Stalin, whether he said it or not, it probably sounds about right. He allegedly said that if he controlled Hollywood, I'd control the world. And it's true, because storytelling is how we get information into our kids. Now, in the old days, a movie producer wants to make money, but he wants to make money making movies. So he'd get a top flight director, a top flight writer, and a top flight actor, risk millions to produce a film. Now, the only way that studio owner got his money back, or her money back, was to make sure people paid their whatever it was, their $10, $15 to sit on the seat and watch the film. He had to meet the needs of the people. And if the people had decent morals, which they did in the old days, more or less, they need to get his money back. But that model has changed, because now what happens is this. The CCP walks up to studio owner and says, here's $150 million, go make this film. Now, nobody cares whether they sell a seat or not. Why? Because they've got their money up front. There are no residuals, there's no royalties. They get their money up front and they don't care. And so what happens is the stories that our kids are being told on a minute-by-minute basis, and that's why every parent's got to monitor what their kids are watching. That has to be countered by messages, good messages, with good stories, with good morals, which grow a nation rather than degrade a nation. So that's a very long answer, but I have to explain why. That is, if a couple of million fell in my lap, that would be one of our priorities, to get this particular story told, because it starts off in one direction and it takes incredible turns down the track. It's a brilliant yarn, but it's one of any number of brilliant stories that needs to start being told again.
I just want to bring this up on the screen here, Rick. This is a concerning turn of events in Western Australia, the indoctrination of our children Year 7 kids have been asked in English to come up with a brochure for a new COVID law, something to do with compulsory vaccination, compulsory quarantining, and the penalties for breaching those laws. That's happening at Court Grammar School in Western Australia. Clearly, our education system is being subverted at every level and from every depth. Where do we begin to fix this problem?
Easy. Go with the money. What we're going to do is, because at the moment, the state governments control the teachers' union. The state governments, allegedly, the teachers' union controls the government. But you've got the teachers' union, you've got the curriculum, you've got the principals and the schools themselves. The money goes to the principal, and the principal then follows the orders about the curriculum and doesn't care what the parents say. And the teachers have a say in the curriculum. Now, hang on. The teachers' union should not have a say in the curriculum. Now, teachers can understand curricula. I do. Block syllabus, detailed syllabus. I get all of that. We learn that in the military when we design training programs ourselves. The control of that should be in the hands of the parents. The parents' job is to raise their children. The school is there to assist. It is not the school's job to shape the character of the kids. It is the parents' job to do that. The school is there to teach them skills that the parents may or may not have. And so the way you do it is with the money. So what you do is, what we're going to do, and it's not my idea, this is Corey Bernardi's idea, or it came out of the US, school vouchers. So let's say, and let's just use easy numbers. Let's say there's a school with 1,000 students in it, and each student gets $3,500 each. So there's $3.5 million budget for the headmaster to run his or her school. No problem. To whom is the headmaster now going to answer? He's going to answer to the state government. But the parents might not be happy with what this lunatic is doing. And I can tell you, I pulled my daughters out of the school down the road because the headmaster was a lunatic, as far as I was concerned.
Yeah. And
so what you do is, instead of giving the headmaster 1,000 times $3,500, you give each family, or each parent, the family for each child, $3,500 per child, and say you can choose any school you want to. You are no longer required or forced to go to a school in your local government area, which you are currently required to do. If you live in one area, you have to send your child to that school, no matter how bad it is. And some of them are shockers. And what's going to happen is this. Yeah. The teachers have produced great results and are led well and really help the parents raise the children the way the parents want their children raised, because this is a parent's responsibility and right, not some 23-year-old know-nothing that doesn't know to hat up but wants to teach their kids masturbation. They can then vote with their feet and move to the new school. So new school gets 1,000 more applications because the last school was so bloody awful. That school shuts down. The teachers are sacked because they're incompetent. And the new school gets more money. There's now got 2,000 students. So there's $7 million budget to create a brilliant school because they know what the hell they're doing. You want to get a fast change? Flow the money in a different direction and watch the lunatics go. That's how you do it.
Now, there is apparently a big protest coming up at Uluru next month. Are you aware, or are you going along to anything there? I wasn't aware that there was going to be a protest as such. I thought there was going to be something of a large meeting or a large gathering.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't know it was a protest. I understood it was a gathering to discuss the future of the First Nations people in Australia. But no, I won't be going. It's not my business. It's up to them to decide what they want. It's up to them to persuade the Australian people what they want. And as I've said many times before, our approach with A1 has been, we're going to go mob by mob by mob and speak to the actual genuine elders on the deck, because they're the ones that are at the coalface. They know exactly what they want and what they need. And so we'll be speaking to them one by one by one. This Federation of Aboriginal Nations, if you look carefully at what they are demanding, and I mentioned this last week, so please, ladies and gentlemen, go to the Original Sovereign Tribal Federation website, OSTF, if the cowards haven't taken it down, and get a screen grab of their declaration. It is the most insulting document any Australian can read. Basically, despite the fact that we've been giving them $33 billion a year, and this is the Aboriginal industry, not Jackie and the Nulla Nulla, but the Aboriginal industry is getting $33 billion a year. Just think about what could be done with $33 billion a year.
Yeah.
And where's it gone?
Exactly.
They'll get one black fella on the board of directors of some company, get every benefit claiming it's an Aboriginal industry or an Aboriginal company. And the rent seekers and the carpetbaggers will turn up, take the money, and no black fella or black or lubra benefits from this.
Yeah.
And so be careful, folks. I wish them well, but I got to tell you, there was never in the history of Australia a federation of black tribes. They might have a right to a piece of land because they have the dreaming and the dance and the song, which are critical to their link to the land. And I get that and I respect that. I really do. But understand this, there are 25 million Australians out there that if you want to insult us and if you want to make demands that are beyond the pale, you will lose every ounce of support that most Australians actually have for you right now.
Yeah.
So I strongly recommend that the Australian people read the OSTF declaration, that insulting piece of trash, badly written, but that insulting piece of trash, and the OSTF, as far as I'm concerned, has been penetrated by the United Nations because they want to defer to the UN and they want to create several hundred separate nations in this country with their own currency, their own economy, their own diplomacy. And I had one particularly imbecilic man who identified himself as the Attorney General of his particular mob. Now, there's cultural appropriation if ever I heard it. And he said, if I want to invite China onto my land, I'll do so. Now, that's a threat. And that's a very dumb threat to make to an army officer, I can tell you. So I pray that they will be measured and intelligent because, once again, I've had any number of people waving bits of paper saying, this is my, this proves that I'm right.
Yeah. From
every angle. And I just smile and say, persuade the Australian people. That's your job. And I even said it to one of the common law groups. And one gentleman, I won't mention his name because I've embarrassed him once before because he deserved it. Because he referred to I asked him, and I previously boosted this guy because I thought he was doing good work. And he was saying that he had the solution to it all with his common law approach. I went, well done, mate. How many have you got? He said 200,000. I said, well, that means you got 24,800,000 that don't know and don't care. And he said, quote, they're stupid, they'll follow. And I said, mate, if you can't persuade them, and if that's your approach, you're as bad as the rest of them. So, ladies and gentlemen, understand this: you must be persuaded of the veracity in logic, the truth in law and logic of everyone's position. And I've got to tell you, I like David Cole. I'm happy to work with David Cole. I like him a lot. His tribal name is Lumpa. He comes out of the NT, and he's done a lot of good work for the locals up there. His black brothers and sisters. But understand this, they're our black brothers and sisters too. There's only one race. It's the human race. And it doesn't matter what color we are. We're all Australians, whether you've been here for 40 minutes or 40,000 years.
So is it your contention then that there is no way to bring the black nation of Australia together as one to be, because my understanding of it is, and I've got to admit, it is extremely limited. And if I misspeak here, I apologize. My understanding is there's a prophecy from a Gadaicha man dating back, over a couple of hundred years or so, about black and white fellow reuniting. It's variously described as black fella in a white skin, but we are, same people, same brotherhood, same sisterhood, and there will be a time where we come together. There is a core group, if you like, of the Aboriginal nation of Australia who believe that and are trying to pull the tribes together. You don't have much faith that can happen?
Oh no, I do. I believe. I don't know about I've heard the prophecy, and I believe that's absolutely the objective. Because our objective in A1, in simplest terms, is one country, one people, one flag. That is our objective, clearly stated. The trick is how we get there. Because right now, we've got some people out there that when I speak to them, there are no obstacles to achieving that. Others, they want the black people to have a superior position above the white people. That doesn't sound like one country, one people, one flag to me.
No, it does not.
That's what I mean.
There is a group claiming to be working towards bringing the entire country together like that. That would be the Australia Project. They have an idea of bringing the nation together street by street. I know you have some very strong views about all of this. Would you like to share, given that we have been talking a lot recently about all these various freedom talkers, I'm not calling us fighters, but talkers coming together and trying to pull in one direction with one message. And like you have structured, I think, your goals in A1, we have to get to a certain point and then look to our next goal and move forward. And that point we're looking for at the moment is gathering more support. The more people we can awaken, then the faster we can get to that next goal. There is a few very appealing things about what TAP are pushing forward. Is there a way that A1, the people, TAP, everybody can come together?
It's not the objective. The objective is for each individual to understand for themselves what they want. See, the moment you hand your authority over to somebody, you've got a problem. The whole A1 model is that it's a grassroots organization. That doesn't mean that every lunatic that joins can change the policy. No, what binds us is this vision of what the country should be. That's the policy document. But the actual running of the party, and that's why we're designing the way we do. The members select their branch president. The branch presidents select the electorate president. The electorate presidents select the state president. See, right now, no party runs like that. Now, this is going to be very difficult to do, but this is the process of maturing as a nation, maturing politically as a nation. Now, we're a registered organisation. We have a constitution. We have accountants. We've got the books. The audits are being done when they need to be done, and so when people join up, they get to see all that. But I've yet to see any other organisation that has that level of transparency. Now, you don't get to look at it if you're not a member because it's none of your freaking business. Yeah. But the whole point of this is not to have a single point of failure. Alarm bells go off in my head when people say, let's get everybody together. No, that's premature because people don't know. It's like saying, let's have a constitution and here's a model to look at. And the moment people say that, they're conning you. This is the 1999 politicians' republic that they had. Our view is let's have an educative process preceding the selection of the models, so that people know what they're looking for. See, it's too easy. It is too easy to say, here's this is great. Now, I have a personal view, but that's irrelevant. What's relevant is what the Australian people want. Now, if I started saying, this is my view and this is what we're going to have because I know better than all of you, then, people should run from A1. But that's not the way we do it. We have some we have some aims and objectives. We have the policies, what we stand for as a people. But control of the organisation, as the control of the country, should be in the hands of the people, not a person. And I'm going to tell you, unless there's that transparency, unless you know exactly who is running the show, are they accountable, are they registered? All these good questions that people have asked us, why aren't you registered yet? I've explained. Are we a registered body with ASIC? Yes, which means we are subject to rules and regulations and transparency, and we must adhere to those processes. Got it. And when you join, you get, you'll get a look at the constitution, everything else, and you go, great. Now I know how this works, and I can work my way up to the top. Now, just so you understand why we're doing it this way, we got a lot of people that have never. We have got one of our state cohorts didn't even know who the Prime Minister was 2 years ago, and man, has she learned fast. She's an absolute dynamo.
Great.
And they're working their way up the ladder. So the whole process of being part of A1 is learning to grow within the system. You join a branch, become a secretary, become a treasurer, become the president, get elected to the electorate president, get elected to, and you grow. By the time you get to the top, you've been in the game a few years, you know what's going on. And then you move on, let somebody else do the job, and you do it. But these other organizations, they have one dude on top. There is no structure. There's no registration. You don't know where the money's going. Where's the bank account? The bucket goes around, give me money for this. And good-hearted people hand money over. But nobody knows where it's gone.
Yeah.
So we don't align with anybody that we can't check out. We actually said that to one woman who runs one of these groups and said, look, you want to work with us? Great. Show us your bank accounts and let us do a vetting process on you. She literally did a 180 and ran. So no, if we expect a lot from our members, we expect a whole lot more for people who are on the outside. We want to free the Australian people to make up their own mind about what they want. Absolutely.
And can't give you enough power and have it happen fast enough. There are so many Australians behind you, Rick, that, it's impossible to count because the counting machines that we'd use to do that, somebody's leaned on them and bent the figures a bit. But that'll change. Looking forward to that changing sooner rather than later. And I say that because I noticed that the Intel upload out of America has lifted in tempo. I think that's the way it's probably best described. If you're following the Telegram channels, folks, you will have noticed that there has been a distinct lift in both the number of stories and the detail in those stories. So, Rick, take from that what we will, just upgrading the content, or is this a move to open the eyes a little bit wider?
No, it's going to get faster and more revealing to the people. A lot of people are going to get a shock. They're not going to get the gentle awakening that they probably like. It'll be faster. It'll be like a fire hose down the throat, and drink as much as you can, as fast as you can. A lot of people will be upset by it, but I got to tell you, I'm tired of watching babies getting killed because people are too sensitive. Life's tough. You're an adult. Time to grow up.
Jessica Smith has been most insistent. She's screaming in the chat. Do you know who Alex Collier is? I don't.
Alex Collier. Name's
Yeah.
familiar. Alex Collier. God.
Maybe maybe she can enlighten us. You want to send me an email who Alex Collier is?
Sorry.
Yep, voiceoffreedomhq@gmail.com, and we'll tell you about Alex Collier next week, or what we can learn about Alex Collier. It seems to mean a great deal to you, Jessica. You've been screaming it in the chat about 1,000 bloody times. So what's happening this week, Rick? You're always busy. I know you don't telegraph where you're going to be, who you're going to be seeing, what you're going to be doing exactly. So in the most discreet way possible, tell us how busy you're going to be in the next week.
Most of my time's in front of the laptop these days, apart from cleaning, cooking, homeschooling, teaching the kids about the volume of a cylinder, things like that. We've got a family life like everybody else, but we've got to juggle a whole lot more. But this week and probably next week in front of the laptop, mostly. We'll be doing a number of interviews with specific people on specific issues. I met a gentleman who, I'll keep it vague at this stage. He's just a tradie, and he came up and had a chat, and it was obvious this man was well read, very intelligent, and the fact that he was a tradie was basically the cover story, and he is. But he's just your average Australian. He's a smart guy. And I said, I should have you online and you can talk about this to make 2 points. One, to share what you've studied and learned, and two, to show the world that we can get any number of smart, capable people to represent Australia in Parliament for 3, 6 or 9 years, whatever it is, and do a better job than the current lineup of clowns that we currently have. So we're doing, hopefully I'll be able to give him a bell and get him on board and do an interview. Plus I've got a couple of other interviews that I want to do. Unrelated to where we are now. There's certainly what we're working on is during this operational pause is preparing for the next phase, if that makes sense. So we're finishing off the corruption from the AEC, and that's important, but we're going to get ready for the next phase. And just on that, while I mention it, please, ladies and gentlemen, do us a favor. Individually write to the AEC. I think I mentioned last week that Clive Palm was allegedly doing a sort of a class action. He wanted everybody's affidavit to, I mentioned that. Please, even if you didn't see anything yourself, shoot an email to the AEC on their website, and there's where the complaints go in, and that require investigation, and just say, look, I heard a lot of stuff. Are you going to make a press statement about this? So if you heard nothing, but you've heard the rumors, ask the question. You pay these people. And Tom Rogers, the head of the AEC, needs to be held to account. What was Tom doing in China just before the election? That's unusual. What's the commissioner of the AEC doing in China? It makes no sense. Flood the AEC, please. This is important. If you're actually a scrutineer, submit it to the candidate so they can submit it, but submit your own and say, my name's John Smith. I was a scrutineer at the Upper Kumbukta West booth, and I saw this happen. This appears to be wrong. Can you please investigate and let me know? And let me know you've received this message. We want to put hundreds of thousands of messages to the AEC, break their system, let them know that we know that they're crooks.
Yeah.
Don't give them an inch of room to maneuver. So we're finishing that off. But as I said, in the next week or 2 or 3, we're preparing for the next phase. We're battening down the hatches, getting everything nice and tight. So when the storm comes, the ark floats.
I just want to reiterate what was said about what Clive's doing at the moment. He's trying to attract everybody's affidavit explaining what their experience was and why it may or may not have been illegal during the election cycle. Now, what this will do is enable them to present it all in a case, which will inevitably get lost because Clive employs a solicitor who hasn't won a case for him in a long time for whatever reason. That will get lost, but it will make all the evidence used unusable in any further case. So every affidavit that's submitted to this class action, and the class action will lose, then becomes inadmissible in anything else going forward. It could almost be contrived as a shrewd plan, Riccardo.
A conspiracy almost, Carl.
Almost. It's funny. We might leave it on that one for tonight, mate. Thank you again. I should point out, you have graciously agreed to let me take the show on the road, so to speak. So in the next couple of weeks, we will do a show live from the Gold Coast where the people can come and ask you the questions themselves.
Oh yeah, no,
I'm
not a problem.
looking forward
Yeah.
to doing that. And
No,
and if you
the
are in
Queenslanders,
Brisbane,
the Queenslanders are
Sorry.
great. When we did the Queensland tour, it wasn't unusual to be there for 3-4 hours, and we took all the questions that were, and people just didn't want to go because they, for the first time, they felt their voice was being heard. It's not the great silent majority; it's the silenced majority. And I've got to tell you, if the experience of this last election is anything to go by, and I think it is, once these people get actively involved in politics and they realize it's better than you think and worse than you think, but the freedom to stand up and say, I am me and this is what I think, it is just brilliant. And once this gets ahead of steam, watch out, globalists, you're in for a very rough ride.
So, folks, if you're on the Gold Coast, we're going to be doing this, I think, on the 5th of July. So keep an ear out. If you would like to come along, I'll let you know where and when and how. If you are in Brisbane or the Gold Coast or even north, and you'd like me to come up and do the same thing in an area where you can come and ask Riccardo the questions, I'm happy to do some traveling. Then just contact me at voiceoffreedomhq@gmail.com and give me a bit of an idea. We need a bit of a venue. The venue has to have certain things like a screen and a projector. If you want to see what Riccardo looks like up close and personal, it'll make it a lot easier than having 500 people gathered around my 27-inch computer monitor. So let's see whether or not we can do that. And would love to be able to get people in touch with you. You're quite right. It's very empowering, Rick, and people seem to gravitate towards you, and they come away feeling empowered after speaking to you. That's the resounding sound I get from people who've met you after traveling to Canberra. And of course, there's always going to be trolls. We've had quite a few of them in the chat tonight. We don't really care about the trolls. There's always going to be opposition. In fact, they're always nice to try and have a logical conversation with, because they usually disappear up their own fundamental orifice when confronted with logic. So, very cool. Melissa, yes, I'm happily come up to Bundaberg. No problems at all. I'm happy to drive anywhere. We might have to do something about figuring out where I'm going to sleep and how I'm going to pay the fuel at $2. 25 a litre, I think we're paying here in New South Wales, in Queensland, where I am. What are you paying in New South Wales at the moment, Rick?
Yeah, no, the diesel's $2.23 depending on where you are, but it's all hovering at outrageous prices, and of course it's because of Ukraine.
Oh, yeah. One of the smallest countries on earth, and our fuel bill goes through the roof. You don't have any explanation for that at all, like most.
Oh, it must be Vladimir Putin's fault. It must be Vlad's fault. Yeah.
All right, now something I'd be very remiss of me to let you go without asking. Julian Assange, we had news during the week that his appeal will go ahead to the High Court in the UK after the Home Secretary signed his extradition order to the US. There have been a lot of interesting stories come out in that intervening time about Julian Assange. In fact, more in the last 3 or 4 days than I've seen in the last 3 or 4 months. Some of them indicate that he's not in Belmarsh at all now, and may not have been for some time. Where do you stand on the whole Julian Assange thing?
I just hope they keep him in one piece. The guy's a world hero, and he should be treated as such. I'm hoping that he's been safe and secure for some time, and this is part of the movie we've been compelled to watch. And he'll be as long as he's safe, that's a good thing.
Yep. And once again, when the big reveal comes, there might be some interesting reveals about him as well, and his past family history is probably the best way to say. I'm looking for distant relatives. I'm looking forward to potentially having the opportunity to talk to his father in the not too distant future. So I'm hoping that comes off. We're trying to put that into motion at the moment. I had WikiLeaks chick on last week, and she was very informative about what's going on with him at the moment. It's great that we're getting this sort of access to from these sorts of people. Clearly, they've found a place here with the Voice of Freedom where they know they can share their truth, and hopefully YouTube won't take us off the air for it. And it doesn't matter if they do, because we have Project Matilda, Rick. So where Project Matilda is steaming along, and in fact, I haven't had a word to them today, but I believe today was the day they were going to be uploading the code at some stage. So we'll be streaming live on Project Matilda, hopefully next week. All fingers crossed. So once again, thank you very much for your time tonight, sir. It's been a great pleasure. The people have once again enjoyed your wisdom and your advice. And I look forward to catching up with you again next Tuesday night.
You bet. Thanks very much, Carl.
Cheers, Rick. Thank you very much.